everyone, and welcome to the Dyslexia Life Hacks Show. I'm your host, Matthew Head. In this episode, I'm talking to Carol and Alana Blumenstein. Carol is a board member for KidsRead2Kids. This is a Parents' Choice Award-winning non-profit founded by ADHD and dyslexic siblings, which Alana is one of them. It offers free audiobooks, which are read aloud by its growing roster of children, and some of it includes video content. Some of the books include the classics and some of the educational titles. I will put links to KidsRead2Kids in the show notes, which will be available at dyslexialifehacks.com/podcast. Welcome to the show, the two of you.
Well, thank you so much. We're excited to be here.
Excellent. Good to hear. Well, one of the things that piqued my interest when researching for this podcast is, Carol, you have a BSEE in electrical engineering. And considering I'm an engineer as well, I was like, ooh, what drove you to do that?
Well, that's a very good question. My dad has a PhD in chemical engineering.
Oh,
so
the hard one.
Engineering was kind of something that felt very comfortable to me. I did love making things, building things. I was a very good coder growing up. So I felt really comfortable with that. I actually went to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and they had just started a program where you could both major in business in the Wharton School, and then also major in electrical engineering in the engineering school. It's a 5-year program called Management and Technology. And so I had the opportunity of participating, which was just an amazing experience.
Oh, nice. And did you then spin out into an engineering career much after that, or where did life take you post your studies?
Well, in some ways, I always use engineering, but I actually went into consulting. I worked for Bain & Company and what was originally called Booz Allen and Hamilton several years ago. But so I did technology consulting and went on back to get an MBA from Wharton.
Oh, nice. Yes, I guess once you've been taught the sort of science and engineering mindset, you start to creep it into other areas of your life, which may come back in as we talk through this conversation. I did read somewhere, Carol, on your profile that you had some struggles in school yourself. When did you kind of become aware of dyslexia, and how did that sort of start entering into your life?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting because growing up for me, the concept of learning challenges, that conversation never took place. It never took place in school. It never took place at the doctor's office. It wasn't something that was literally ever discussed. So all I knew is that I struggled to read. I could not spell. I was a very slow reader. And my teachers would just say I was lazy, I was stupid. I had 2 older sisters that were just flying through school. And my teachers, I was the youngest, my teachers would look at me and say, like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And again, back then, there was no discussion of any reasons outside of, well, you must be lazy or you must be stupid. And so I grew up hearing that from my teachers. And fortunately, I had an amazing mom who just didn't listen to any of that. And she said, Carol, you're amazing in math. You're amazing in science. There's so many things that you do really well. And she really encouraged me, and she read to me a lot because I really did struggle with, reading novels and things like that. That was just not something I was going to do. So she read a lot to me, and that was something that I always loved. And even growing up, I used to get books. They were books on tape back then. And that's how I would listen. We'd go on long car rides and we'd put them in. We'd rent them from the library. I'm a dinosaur, so. And so I would listen to all these amazing stories. And I really loved that. And that was really my introduction to loving to read. But fortunately, my mom was very, I would say, non-traditional. She put me into computer programming way back when nobody even heard of that. And
cool.
I head off to community college when I was 12, learning how to program in C and other languages. And I was really good at that. And I actually never quite finished high school. They had a program at Penn where you could submatriculate. So I actually left high school and went right into University of Pennsylvania. And then later, they mailed me a high school diploma like a year later after like I was a sophomore in college. It was so funny.
So your diploma literally came in the post.
So for me, I just thought, boy, something's wrong with me. I'm broken. Something's wrong. And my mother would always say, oh, absolutely not. You're creative. You're intellectual. You love to learn. And that really helped me to really get to a place that I never would have gotten to if I didn't have such a supportive and brave thinking mother, because at that time, she was against what everyone else was saying. So I'm very lucky. And then we spin forward and I get married and I have 5 children myself, and history is repeating itself all over again. And my kids are getting the same messages back from their teachers. They're slow, something's wrong with them, they're lazy, they're not trying. And I knew my kids were trying so incredibly hard. And this one wonderful teacher looked at me and said, have you ever thought about getting them tested? And I said, tested for what? This wasn't something that I was familiar with, and this was several years ago. And she said, well, just to see if they have any sort of, different learning styles. And I said, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And so I tested all 5 of my kids. And they all do have some sort of a learning difference, whether it's ADHD, whether it's dyslexia, severe anxiety, all sorts of things, dysgraphia. And it really kind of opened up our mind and realized like, oh my gosh, this really makes sense. And at that point, we decided, my kids were talking and they thought, wow, what a wonderful idea of starting a nonprofit to really help other kids and parents and really educate them on what it means. Because your child isn't lazy and your child isn't stupid. And the opposite, they're running a marathon every day and they're trying so hard. And we just need to be able to recognize it, understand it, support it, and help our children find areas that they love. Like for me, I love computer programming. It was something that I was just naturally good at. And that helped me ultimately learn how to learn and succeed in school. And every child has a strength. And if we can just help them find something that they're passionate about, it really opens up a wonderful way for learning.
So, Alana, you whereabouts do you fit in with the 5 children? Are you oldest, youngest, somewhere in the middle?
I'm the second oldest.
Ah, nice. And you dyslexic or ADHD or both?
ADHD, and I also struggled with severe anxiety in the form of selective mutism when I was growing up, which basically meant that I could only speak to my immediate family members.
Oh, okay. That must get really tricky when you're at school, because judging by what your mum's just said, not much has changed in the time between you going to school and when she went to school. So talk me through selective mutism. How I assume really from your point, Carol, you must have started thinking, well, hang on, she'll only talk to us, but won't talk to anybody else. And then Alana, you're then going into the school system and talking to nobody. And what happens there?
Basically the teacher would take attendance and I was so silent that everyone in class would just say she's not here today because I was.
So would you even put your hand up and try and sort of flag them down without having to say anything that you were there?
I was just happy to let them think I wasn't there. It seemed like the solution at the time.
I see. But clearly, you would have worked your way through that, obviously getting all your kids tested and yourself through the testing program. Once you got tested and found out ADHD with selective mutism, were any light bulbs then gone off in your head? And what did you do sort of moving forwards?
Well, for me as a mom, the first thing I always made sure is that my kids saw what their report, what their diagnosis was. I remember when Jacob, some parents were like, oh, maybe we shouldn't tell them, or maybe we should hide it or not tell teachers. And my philosophy is you tell everyone. There's no shame at all. And I remember the second Jacob found out that he was dyslexic, he was actually relieved. He was like, oh, thank goodness.
Is Jacob the oldest?
Jacob is my middle child. He's severe dyslexic.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, thank goodness, because there's a relief. It makes sense. It's like, oh, okay, I understand why things are difficult, and I can now figure out how to make things better. And so for Jacob, we used a lot of technology because he was like me. We love tech. We love all that sort of stuff, but we're very slow readers. We're terrible spellers, but we love stories. And so we immediately, Jacob, between his, his iWatch, where he can get all of his information on his phone and his computer, he's listening to stories. Everything is technology based for him. And it speeds everything up. For Alana, I was very shy myself as well growing up. I was very afraid to even speak. And the very first thing that my mother did is she put me in theater. She put me in ballet. She put me in music. She put me in piano lessons. She put me in all of the arts. And she said, Carol, you have to be part of a team, and you have to be in a world where you're not yourself. Because there's something about going into dance and you're in the Nutcracker, and now you're a particular character in the Nutcracker, or you're in a play and you're now this character. It allows you to be more free because you're not speaking as yourself. And I thought, wow, looking back, I was like, man, my mom was just brilliant. But because for myself, I was always so afraid, what if I said something wrong? What if I did something wrong? I was always so fearful of somebody looking at me. And I remember in school, we'd have to read out loud, and I would count up every child in front of me, and I frantically tried to find the paragraph we had to read out loud. And I spent the whole time reading it over and over again. And then God forbid somebody got up to go to the bathroom. I'm like, no. That means that's a new paragraph I have to read. And my heart would sink. Oh my goodness. I thought I'd have a nervous breakdown. And finally, if I couldn't read it, I'd say, oh, may I go to the bathroom? Because whatever I needed to do to escape. And so all of my experiences of talking out loud were just so horrifyingly terrifying that my mother needed to find a place that would be fun and safe. And, in theater classes, you're supposed to just become and open your mind and be free without any sort of judgment. And that really allowed me to feel free and learn to express. And so I did the same thing with my kids. All 5 of my kids were in ballet. All 5 of them were in the Nutcracker. And I remember people saying, but you have boys. Why would you do that? And I'm like, why not? Why not something else? And I said, well, to me, ballet, it's slow. So you really think, you're working very precise, you're working your posture, you're working with others. Everything about a ballet is that you are within a repertoire. You all become one. It's not about one individual, but the group collectively. And it's a wonderful experience to be something bigger than yourself. And it also gives you the time to really be precise and really think about every motion, every movement. And I think that's really important. Ballet to me is the foundation of all dance. So when you have a foundation of ballet, you can do hip hop, you can do jazz, you can do classical, you can do anything that you want because you have that foundation and you've learned correctly. Because they take the time to really precisely teach you every movement. And I think that's really important. Get that foundation, whether it's in cooking, whether it's in reading, take the time and get the foundation. And then you can go off and do anything that you want and you'll enjoy it more. You have the foundation. It's just going to be fun, easy to learn. And so they all participated together, which allowed Alana to feel safe because she had siblings with her. It was more a fun environment. They did tons of school plays. They were in the choir at school. All of these things that allowed Alana to express herself and to be part of a group, part of a team.
And Alana, how did you find it in terms of, obviously the ballet allowed you to express yourself. Did you find it started to lift the mutism and increase your own confidence? And was there a bit of competition with your siblings? I'd love to ask, really.
Definitely not. I was not nearly good enough to deserve to feel competitive.
No competition.
I honestly think it was like a Russian ballet studio, and our teacher was so strict and so scary that nothing else was scary to me after that. So in that way, it really helped me. I had embarrassed myself in every way possible by the time I left. That like the rest of the world was a piece of cake.
I see. So
you could grown men cry, but she's actually the nicest person in the world, and she cared so much for her students. She really did. And it was very much like family, because all of the parents, we had to volunteer our time. We were all in the Nutcracker. We were sewing costumes. It was very much a community. The kids had to dress appropriately when they left the studio. There was a lot of self-worth. She treated a 6-year-old child who was a tree with the same expectations as one of the highest level dancers. And she said, you are all important. That means nobody comes late. Nobody misses, a rehearsal. Everybody must be here. And it was amazing to see these tiny little mice and their heads were high, and they were so proud because they understood that they were an integral part of the show. That if they were even 2 inches out of step, somebody could trip. And it was this lesson at the second you started, at the youngest age, is that everybody matters. Everybody is important. Everybody has a job to do. Yeah. And those were the kind of lessons that I think we need in life, that it doesn't matter what your position is. You are part of a team. You don't come late. She always said, on time is 10 minutes early. But they were like life lessons that helped my kids understand, what is important in life, and that we are all team players. We all work together for a common goal. And when we do, it's magical.
And a lot of nice extra stuff with just the physical activity, the extra proprioception and all that kind of stuff. And you're able to, so skill you can carry on is that you know where your limbs are, you've got good balance, keeps you fit. So if you then decide to take up, I guess, sports or something else, if that takes your interest as you got older, away you go, because you already know what you're doing with your feet and proprioception that way, and the confidence that builds.
Well, it's fun. And, dance is it's a wonderful thing. And I see so many kids and they're afraid to dance. They're afraid to ask somebody to dance. They're afraid to, at parties. And I'm like, get up and dance and have fun.
Yes. I remember school discos was the dancing bit was always the excuse to go buy another drink. So that's we'll focus quite a bit on that kind of strategy. But you've got 5 children. Sounds like there's neurodiversity through all of them, or is there like an odd one that is actually neurotypical? I think you said all 5 have got some sort of neurodiversity, if I remember correctly.
I think they're all so completely different.
Yes.
I remember with the first one, I was like, okay, great. I have got this down. I know what to do. And then with each one, their personalities, their needs, their interests, they're all different. And so each one, it was really fun to kind of see like, oh, okay, well, who are you? And what do you love, and how can we make things different? My 3 oldest kids, they were in a school that was very scholastic based, very kind of like that sort of pre-college, very intense. And my youngest 2, my youngest daughter is both dyslexic and ADHD with severe anxiety. So you throw all that in the mix. And I was like, whoa, we need a completely different way of teaching her. She needs to touch it, lick it, eat it, build it. And so her sitting in a classroom 8 hours a day, staring at a board, that wasn't going to be for her. So we kind of switched her over into a technical school where she's studying in high school to be a cosmetologist. And then she'll still go off to college, but it was a great way for her to learn, chemistry, because by learning hair dyes and things like that, that was a way she could understand, biochemistry, or whereas just sitting and staring at a textbook, it was just not going to work. And my Ruben is my artist. I think he was born with a pencil in his hand because he's been drawing his whole life. And so the same thing, we put him in a program or he's focusing on graphic arts. So half his day is very artistic based. And that really helps him to build his confidence because that's an area that he loves. So with each child, it was really a very different path.
But no one is neurotypical in the family, not either of the parents either.
Ah, wow. So loads of thoroughbreds going on. That must be really, really interesting how you're able to compare and contrast everybody. What's the age range between the oldest and youngest?
About 8 years.
8 years. And how old is the oldest now?
Benjamin is 25.
Oh, okay, cool. So how are you finding as they go through life? Do they start helping each other? Because you've got, it sounds like such a wide spectrum of neurodiversity, as well as 5 different personalities, different genders, and different life experience. In that way, it's such a huge melting pot. How does that melting pot look when it comes together, right? And help each other out?
They're always helping each other. And it's not just one direction. Benjamin's my oldest. He is ADHD. He's often helping Ruben, my youngest, who is ADHD, which is really wonderful. But Ruben is also helping the other kids. So it's a constant give and take. So all 5 of them, based on what their gifts are, Alana's an incredible writer. And so she's always the one helping all of them, when it comes to anything involving getting their thoughts or expressions on page, which is really, really fascinating and really wonderful to watch. And then, I've got, Jacob that's very technical, so he's really good in that area. Julia loves to take pictures. So it's like, with each one, they develop their skills and they love to share it. So it's kind of nice to watch them be both student and teacher.
So, Alana, how do you find being, I guess, the scribe of the family? If you're really into writing and you've got a few dyslexic siblings, you said about the assistive technology earlier with, I assume at some point they're using speech-to-text software, or do they prefer to come to you, Alana, and get you to write for them?
I think it depends. I never write for them, but I really enjoy talking with them about their ideas and helping them learn how to express those ideas on paper, whether through their own like fictional stories or in essays. I think a lot of my siblings are much better storytellers than they give themselves credit for. So it's really fun kind of getting those ideas out of them. I'm always going up to all of my siblings and being like, what book are we writing? Like, what story are we telling now? I really like working with people. So I'm always trying to get them to write more.
So are you sort of the crafter? So they might have the creative spark and the idea, but you're able to help them craft it into like a coherent kind of story. Is that how you kind of
I definitely enjoy. I have a million of my own things that I work on as well, but I love helping them craft their stories. It's never enough for me. I always want more.
I can imagine Sunday dinner around your house is just this bunch of neurodiverse people around a table bouncing ideas, and somebody else pulls them along to craft these ideas, and then it bounces off another one, and it's this whole sort of round idea. And just somebody have to sit there with writing notes to keep up with the idea flow going on.
It's really fun. There's always something to talk about. The extroverts in the family love it. The introverts in the family struggle a little bit sometimes.
Struggle to get a word in edgeways, right? Well, okay. That sort of gets me on to really, you've got the KidsRead2Kids. So non-profit reading audiobooks. Where did the spark for that idea come from?
Well, I was 15 and my younger brother, Jacob, who is severely dyslexic, was 13. And he had recently been diagnosed with dyslexia. And we actually switched schools so that we could get better resources for all of our various learning disabilities. And after we kind of had a handle on things and really understood how our own minds worked and what resources we needed, we decided that we wanted to do something to give back to all of the kids and even adults and just families in general in the world who didn't have as clear of an understanding as we did, or even didn't have as many resources as we were lucky to have. And we remembered growing up, both of our parents would read us all of these amazing stories. And we realized that a lot of our favorite books weren't because we read it on the page, but because they were read to us, like classics like Anne of Green Gables, which became one of our favorite stories in the whole world. We used to have read to us every single night. And we were like, what if we started a free nonprofit where we had teen readers reading these classic abridged stories so that anyone can listen at their own pace. And we wanted to use teen readers so that we could give kids role models of all backgrounds that have had their own unique struggles, whether with learning disabilities or mental health issues, and so that they could show how they had overcome and learned to embrace those issues. And that's how KidsRead2Kids was started.
Yeah, one of the sad things is so many of these wonderful books aren't even read in the school anymore.
Okay.
And the other nice thing about it is that so many of these stories are about young children who have faced terrible challenges themselves and how they were able to overcome them. And so it's a really empowering, inspiring stories for kids to listen to, because sometimes we forget that others have troubles as well because we're so focused with our own. And it's nice to hear about young kids who have gone through difficult times and who have come through stronger, braver, and better for it. So we really loved having, these young high school students. We didn't just have them read the book. We actually have them filmed. They're filmed individual chapters, so that one of the things we want children to realize is that you listen at your own pace. Mm-hmm. And that means if you want to listen to chapter 3 5 times, go for it. There's no judgment. We want kids to just love. If they just want to listen to the chapter 1 and fall asleep to it, and every day they start again, that's okay. That's what it's for. It's for them to learn how to enjoy and love stories, and find how they enjoy it the best. No judgments, just pure enjoyment. And we have kids of all different backgrounds and interests, because we hope if a child's not sure what to listen to, maybe they will find a reader that they feel connected to. So we try to open it up to make it as friendly and as fun as possible.
Yeah, we wanted to publicly embrace all of the various struggles we had growing up, because in our school, we were always like some of the only kids that ever had accommodations or extra time. And so we were like those few kids that were staying after class to finish the test, or that had other accommodations that most kids didn't have. And we never wanted other kids to feel that way, to feel like they were the only ones in the world with those struggles. We wanted them to know, like, hey, you're not alone. There are so many of us. And that, there are going to be struggles along the way, but there are also so many unique gifts that come with each of those.
Right.
Disabilities.
And also, I would talk to a lot of parents and they would be afraid to tell the school, or they didn't want the teachers to look at their child differently. So they wouldn't even want to tell the school that their child has a disability, or God forbid that their child be, quote, pulled out of their classroom as though somehow it was shameful. Yeah. And, we try to explain to parents and to kids that these accommodations aren't shameful. It's a way to help them to just make things even. It's kind of like somebody who needs to wear glasses. You wouldn't grab the glasses off somebody and say, oh, you can't wear glasses. That's shameful. You put the glasses on just to make it even so that they see just the same as everybody else. You're not cheating. It's nothing that's wrong. It's just making it fair. And so we never want a child to say, oh, I don't want the accommodations. I don't want to stay longer. That's too embarrassing. And we don't want a parent to say, oh no, I don't want my child to be singled out to stay longer or to be moved to a different classroom where it's quiet. I don't want them to be different than everybody else. We want parents and kids and teachers to embrace that we do what helps that child, that each individual child to succeed, whatever they need. That is what they should do, and they should be proud of it. There's no shame.
No. And something, dyslexia, ADHD, and neurodiversity is not always just about the downsides either, is it? There are strengths to being dyslexic. Hyperfocus ADHD, it can, when directed in the right direction. Autism also can drive great change in innovation as well as use the strengths properly. So trying to get people past the kind of deficit thinking can be a really tricky thing to do.
Well, that's really important. That's one of the reasons why Alana started the KidsRead2Kids magazine, a magazine that specifically talks about amazing kids, amazing adults all over the world who, despite their disability or because of their disability, however you want to look at it, are really changing the world and making it a better place and doing amazing things. And, I always say to my kids, in many ways, I'm grateful that my childhood in school was so difficult because I have an incredible work ethic. I'm not afraid of anything. I assume something to be hard work. It's always been hard work. So I'm never going to be afraid to not do something because I think it's going to be hard. Of course it will be hard, but I'm okay with that. I know that I have the discipline to sit down and I will find whatever resource I need. I'll pick up the phone, I'll search, I'll Google whatever I need to do to be able to learn so I can do what I want to do. And I've always said to my kids that in some ways it's a gift. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid to fail.
Yeah.
That's gone. And what a freedom it is because I can just go out and try. I do my best and it's a wonderful freedom. And I teach all of my kids that whatever it is that you want to try and do, we go for it and we're going to learn along the way. And if we don't have the skills now, we'll learn them. And it's really important that find what you love and you just have to go for it.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. So I want to circle back to sort of some of the audio readings. And you were saying like having somebody who could read that a sort of a end user of KidsRead2Kids can use. Does that mean that every book is read by every child that you've got to read the books, or can you pick your preferred reader and then go through a list of books? How does that work?
Each of our readers has 1 or 2 books at most that they read.
Right.
So they can pick per reader, but then there's like a book or 2 that they'll have to choose from. But all of our readers are so nice and so amazing. So you really can't lose.
And chapter books too. So they're long. There's 20 chapters. So it's they really get to spend a long time, regardless, even if it's one book, they spend a long time with their reader. And it's just a really wonderful way of being introduced to some of the books. More importantly, we also have free lesson plans that Alana has created to help kids work on their active listening skills, creative writing prompts, listening comprehension, so that we want kids to be able to learn how to listen because, we might be born hearing, but we're not really born with active listening skills. And oftentimes it's not taught in school. So we really try to teach kids while they're listening to books that are really fun. We have the lesson plans and we have 2 lesson plans on our website. They're free that you can download. They're used in schools, libraries all over the world. And so it really helps kids to start really thinking about what they're listening to and really trying to think about what were the important messages. We don't ask picky questions. What was the color of the 3rd book on the 4th floor? We don't do things like that. Who cares?
Yes.
You're not going to remember anyways. We really focus on what is the important messages of this chapter. And then we take it a step further and let them creatively write and expand. So they're constantly learning because we want them to then when they go back to school, that they learn how to focus and listen to their teacher. So that they can become more active participants in their education. So we really feel like that's very, very important. And then once they're really comfortable listening to our books, they can move on and they can listen to anything they want. You want to learn biochemistry? You can learn, anything you want to learn. And we really want to stress to children that they will be lifelong learners, that they really learn anything. And if you have a teacher, maybe you don't quite understand how they're teaching you. you can learn other ways so that you can still do well in school. So yeah, it's a very fun, it's just fun to watch and fun to get feedback from parents, from kids. We've gotten so many letters from parents that said, my child never wanted to read a book because it was so hard. They were just not even interested when you mentioned it. And when they started listening to Alana reads Anne of Green Gables, their children would be like, oh, this is so interesting. Once you get that light turned on.
Yes.
Then they're like, ooh, can we go to the library? Maybe we can get another book. And those are the kind of things we want to get the switch turned on.
Yes. So how is your system different to, say, using something like Audible to listen to books?
Very different.
We try to make it really personal so that when they're listening to a story, they have a specific role model to connect with. They have the video and the sound. That's really, I think, our main difference is putting it on like a role model to younger kid level and not just listening to either a robotic voice or the audible readers.
Right. Also, both are good.
No, we think all
is good. We really do. And I think that once kids are used to listening to ours, they can go on and listen to Audible. The reason about Audible that frightens me, if that's the first way you learn, is that it's highly produced. You've got the music, you've got the professional actors. It's so dramatized that I assure you that your biology teacher is not going to sound like that. And so we really want to teach kids how to listening to real people talking to them. And even though the high school kids, they read with expression, it's still real people reading and you're listening. And I think that's very important to learn how to do that, because otherwise, if all you know is highly produced, stories with the music and all of that, it's really hard to go back and just listen to someone that doesn't have all of that. And so that's something that we really try to make sure that kids understand. That's why we have the lesson plans. That's why we have the real talking. It's real kids reading to kids.
So it's almost like, instead of, I don't know, Stephen Fry reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to you in his beautiful voice, it's almost like having an older sibling sat on a chair in your bedroom reading to you. So there is not that Stephen Fry isn't human, because he clearly is, but there's kind of a ground to that. It loses its high level production when a professional and has this more organic feel to it. Is that kind of the direction you're going for? And is the video literally somebody holding the book, reading it to camera, or is there any acting out that goes on as well?
Yes, some people use a camera, some people use their computer cameras, which sometimes creates more intimate feel, like you're FaceTiming. It's like recreating that feeling when we call it our reading nook. Like when you're listening to your reader, it's kind of like your private little, your reader's den.
Right. So it's very intimate. It's just like if, like you said, your older sibling came and said, oh, can I read you a bedtime story? Or let me share one of my favorite books with you. And it's just, that's really what the setting is for. There's a time and a place for Audible. I listen to Audible. My kids all listen to Audible. I think it's wonderful. So I'm not trying to say it's not. It's super, super fun. But when it comes to really learning how to listen, really paying attention, I think that's very important, because like I said, we want kids to succeed in school. And by the time you get to college, there may not be a textbook at all. There are classes that's 100% lecture, and that's it. And we really want to get kids prepared so that they can succeed in whatever path that they choose. I never want a child to feel like they say, oh, I really want to do this, but I can't. Our philosophy is, yes, you can. We always want to say yes, and we're going to figure out how we can help you.
And it's not just young kids, really. It could be anyone at any age. We've had adult
We have a lot
too.
of adults.
Even just like for me, going through and listening and editing the videos before I like publish them, like I've become a better listener. I used to go into classrooms and just completely space out and not hear a thing. And I've gotten a lot better at listening since we started KidsRead2Kids.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I like the idea, but I like the angle you're coming at with it. How are you planning to sort of grow this? What are your future plans? Is there a direction you kind of feel like it needs to go?
Oh my goodness, we have so many.
A lot. I think ever since, we started this when my brother Jacob and I were in high school, like undergrad, high school. So
2016, right?
As we grow, KidsRead2Kids grows.
Right. We started in the high schools. We set up a whole book club where we created an entire curriculum
for in-person and remote learning.
Right. Where high school mentors work with young kids. We created entire activities, lesson plans, crafts to really help kids. We developed a whole program on dealing with feelings and emotions, especially with COVID, fears, anxiety. We have a whole program that we do in schools of helping children, and not just little kids, but we even did it up through kids in their early 20s, dealing with emotions, because when you have that fear, it often holds you back. And so you need to be able to acknowledge it, and then you can put it aside. But when you just pretend like everything is fine, it's not. So we have a whole program on that. Ruben's actually writing a whole book that goes along with it. And so is Alana. Ruben's our illustrator. And Alana's writing, which is very exciting. Yeah. Like I said, we have our KidsRead2Kids magazine. Right now, it is a digital form that is up. But Alana right now is working on more of
a print version,
a in-print version, which is super fun. Like in this one, you meet Stephen, who is one of our readers.
Just for the benefit, because this is audio only, Carol's got a very glossy, very well put together magazine she's holding up on screen.
But it's because our magazines were always digital, because we have videos in there and it's super fun. We do cooking, we do crafts, we do interviews. We have librarians suggesting books. We've got kids suggesting books. We've got poems, all sorts of fun things. But then parents said, oh, our kids really want to be able to hold something. So now we're creating so that a child will not only be able to have the magazine to hold, but there'll always be the digital counterpart, so that they'll have both, which it seems like a lot of kids with learning challenges, they want to feel like they're reading too. Mm-hmm. And so that was very, very exciting. And Alana's also working on several books as well. So it's...
So is that original stories as well as...
Yes. Yes. We write, all of us kind of write a mixture of stories from like kindergarten, preschool age to elementary I'm writing a middle grade novel right now. So it's kind of fun as we expand our resources to keep writing and creating different programs. We always like to create hands-on resources to use alongside anything we publish.
Right.
Which is really fun.
We always find that, especially for my kids with learning challenges and myself, we always find that by making something, it helps to reinforce. I remember my daughter Joya really had a difficult time with math, and she decided she hated math, but she loved cookies. And I'm like, okay, we're going to bake. We're going to learn fractions a super fun way. And when she's looking at a whole bunch of M&Ms, all of a sudden, things start to make sense, because when you put things in a perspective or into a world that a child understands and feels comfortable, then the lessons can be easily taught. And a lot of children, you can teach math with Legos. You can teach math, spatial, geometry through Lego design. It's amazing how you can teach when you take that lesson off the blackboard or the whiteboard And you start allowing children in a form that they understand. And so, like I said, all of my children are different. So the lessons are always different, but you really understand it. And then once they get it, once the light bulb goes off, then they can apply it. It's like, aha, that moment. And it's like, okay, now I understand. But if you don't get that moment, they just feel lost and then they give up. We can't have that.
To put that into terms, basically the two main things that we focus on teaching kids how to be is how to be an active listener, which we teach through our read alouds and our videos, and how to be an interactive hands-on learner, both of which are really, really important for kids who learn differently.
And then one of the other lessons as well that goes along with both of these is not being afraid to ask for help. We are constantly reminding children to ask for help. There's no shame. And that's one of the reasons why we love getting high school and middle school students involved as mentors, because they are ones who are afraid to ask for help. And here they are now learning to help others. And it starts kind of reinforcing the concept of we help others and we ask for help. And they're both equally important, because when you're afraid to ask for help and you start helping someone else and you see how much they needed it, and they're usually so afraid to ask, and you're like, no, please ask me. It's okay. It starts reinforcing in yourself like, oh, yeah, it is okay. Yeah. I can go ask my, my calculus teacher because I'm lost. And don't wait till you're drowning. So that lesson is really important. So we're constantly, in every plan that we do, we're constantly showing children the importance of asking for help.
Yes, that's great. And I like the way you reinforce that from multiple different directions. Okay, this brings me sort of towards the closing of this podcast. And in all episodes, I ask 3 rapid-fire questions. They are rapid-fire from me, but they don't necessarily need rapid-fire answers from yourself. So let's dive into the first one. What prejudices have you had about dyslexia that have been proven wrong?
That a dyslexic person doesn't like to read.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, as you've quite rightly pointed out through this episode, how can you empower dyslexic people to enjoy reading? Something I even struggle to this day to enjoy reading sometimes. Okay, question number 2. If an alien landed and asked you what dyslexia was, how would you describe it to them?
I think that's a really difficult question. I love that question, but I think it's really difficult because I don't even know if I know how to describe it myself.
Okay.
It's so many things to so many different people. I don't know if I would even want to bring it into a 2-dimensional form.
I know it's a mixed bag of things. It's your processing. It's like auditory. It's how you see things.
Right. It's how you are decoding. There's just so many elements.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most universal things, because I know that different dyslexics struggle with different things with their auditory processing and how they hear and process sounds. But the struggle to decode, I think, is the main thing that every dyslexic person I met.
And I think one other thing is the way I kind of describe dyslexia in terms of our processing speed is that sometimes when you're working on something that you're not familiar with, it's kind of like some people's brains are like a superhighway conductor and they're just flying back and forth, remembering things, information. Yeah. And sometimes ours could be like a bumpy country road and you're kind of on a horse and buggy and you're just kind of gambling along. And so on some of those areas, it just might take a little longer. And as we get tired, of course, it takes a whole lot longer. But that's just something that we have to understand and be aware of. And that's why we use technology when we need to. And we don't wait until midnight to start a homework assignment.
No, it tends to be a good idea not waiting until midnight.
But it's really a difficult, I think it's very difficult to truly just summarize it in just, one statement, because it really is. I look at how my experiences are so different than Jacob's, which are so different than my daughter Julia's. And yet,
But you're all really good at seeing the big picture and thinking creatively and being problem solvers, which a lot of dyslexics are especially gifted in.
Right.
And seeing patterns. There's so many great gifts with dyslexia.
And one of the, to me, the biggest gift, I think, is compassion. Because when you grow up struggling, you know what it's like and how difficult it is. And you have this sort of compassion for others because you just get it, you know. And for me, to grow up in a world without compassion, to not understand why somebody is struggling, that is, I can't even comprehend that. So I'm just very grateful that all of our experience allows us to be able to interact with others, relate with others, have compassion and empathy for others. Because, you know, in this world, we really need that.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Okay. And the final question of the podcast, and you're not allowed to answer with Kids Read to Kids for this one, is seeing as this is the Dyslexia Life Hack show, what is your favorite dyslexia life hack?
For me, I love listening to books in the car.
Yeah.
You know, because I have a lot of time in the car that otherwise, what else could I be doing? And for me, that's my greatest time to be able to learn something new. I love that. I want to learn something about somebody, or I want a skill or whatever. And I just take that time and I say, okay, I'm going to go into a new world and I'm going to learn something new. So that's probably one of my favorites.
I'm not dyslexic, but from my time, my many hours working alongside my brother, Jacob, I would say talking ideas out loud. And one app that I really, really love, and I know that he likes too, is called Otter. And that's where it records and transcribes your thoughts. So then you can listen and look back and read it. And so using technology like that, I think.
Yeah, that's really important because a lot of kids have all these ideas in their head. And there's a million, they have a whole answer, but you give them a pen or a pencil and you say, okay, put it down. And about 5 words come down and they're done. And you're like, but you had this whole story. Yeah. And so when you can just talk it, you know, just at least get your thoughts down on paper through Otter, that really helps a lot because otherwise nobody really sees what you're thinking.
No, definitely. Well, it's been great talking to you guys. And is there anything, where can people find you first of all? And is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
They can find us on our website, KidsRead2Kids.com. From there, there's links to our YouTube channel, KidsRead2Kids, Instagram, YouTube, all at KidsRead2Kids, with the number 2.
Right.
Yes.
And we always love if kids want to volunteer or to get involved. We're always looking for kids to get involved with the magazine, to get involved in so many different ways. We really think that when you can mentor other kids, especially when you yourself are a kid, you really, it's just a wonderful feeling because everybody has the ability to help somebody else. Everybody does.
Yes, most definitely. And I will drop links to all the things in the show notes, which are obviously available at dyslexialifehacks.com/podcast. Go to this episode and you'll get all the links for that. So I want to thank you two for taking the time to come on the podcast today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for helping us to get our message out. We really do hope that our resources can help kids, teachers, parents. We're very honest with our own journey. And if anyone ever has a question, they can always reach out to us. All of our information's on our website. So that's really, we love being able to share our experiences.
Yeah, good. And I want to thank everybody else for taking the time to listen. And I will talk to you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.